my co-host this week, SiriusXM radio host and attorney Jenny Hutt. Jenny, we got lots of information tonight. Jodi's Twitter is back up, everybody. Good news. But no new tweets yet. We'll keep checking and keep you posted throughout tonight. Sorry to disappoint you, Jenny. I know you better go quickly follow her to make sure you can keep track of her.
She blocked me, Dr.
Well, you know, it's funny. We all, myself and all of our staff, tried to follow as well, and we couldn't. So it's a funny, I don't know if it's all of us or the whole thing is set up in such a way that you can't follow. I don't know. We'll find out. Also coming up, we have never before seen video taken after Travis's death. Very interesting. Plus, a renowned psychiatrist, a friend of our show, says Jodi not mentally ill. He and I are going to get into that. But first, something that comes up repeatedly on this show, Jodi's eyes. What is up with Jodi's eyes? Watch this. Some of your friends actually had concerns about just the look in her eye and that they didn't want their kids around her.
I had an opportunity to connect eyes with Jodi. And if looks could kill, she was dead on the spot.
And there's Jodi Arias with the most frightening, evil, I mean, I've never seen anything like it before or since.
She had that look in her eye like, yeah? What else you gonna say?
When you look in her eyes, it's empty. It's just like there's no soul behind there.
Look into her eyes. She is deviant.
I feel like everybody keeps saying the same thing.
Yes,
that it was this look in her eye. Vapid, weird, empty eyes.
Right. She stares Tanisha down and the other family members and smiles at them.
So, Jenny, there you go. I mean, we've heard that over and over again. People...
Well,
go ahead.
She has crazy eyes. I mean, that's what the layman's term is, Dr. Drew. She's empty, soulless, crazy eyes.
Well, Jenny, I'll leave it at that for right now. We have got HLN legal correspondent Beth Karras standing by. She's covering all the latest development. Beth, where is Jodi right now?
Well, she is back at Estrella Jail, Dr. Drew. She left the psych ward about 1 o'clock local time today, 4 p.m. Eastern time. In fact, her mother, Jodi Arias, had gone to the psych ward to visit her and was turned away, saying Jodi's moving back to Estrella. So I don't have confirmation that she went over there to visit her. She needed to be processed and brought back, and she was en route, apparently, when her mother went to visit her. So she's there, and it is something we thought might happen once she got evaluated and was found to be no longer a danger to herself if she ever was. So now we're just waiting for Wednesday, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock local. The aggravation phase should begin.
Very good. Thank you, Beth. Tonight on our panel, Lonnie Coombs, attorney and author of You're Perfect and Other Lies Parents Tell. Mark Eiglarsh, attorney at speaktomark.com, becoming a meteorologist and cloud and fog specialist. And psychologist Robbie Ludwig, author of Till Death Do Us Part. All right, now... There's even more from that post-verdict interview we've all been arguing about that she gave immediately after the verdict to station KSAZ. And I'll remind you all, Mark, she spent 4 days in a psychiatric hospital. It takes 72 hours on a hold. You can't even hold somebody past that for an evaluation. So it was beyond just evaluative. Now,
what's your point?
Well, just let's leave that out of the vapors for a second. Let's listen to what she says about her upcoming defense against the death penalty.
I've been told that I don't have any mitigating factors.
By who?
My attorney.
Kirk Nurmi said to you there are no mitigating factors for you in terms of arguing against the death penalty.
Nothing that is what you typically see in a case like this, such as a childhood where there was drugs, alcoholism, molestation, things like that. None of those things occurred in my family. I guess we would sort of joke that my mom didn't beat me hard enough.
Mark, ha ha ha, she's a comedian. That's disgusting, no?
No. Well, disgusting. Listen, everything about her just makes me sick. You know, playing the victim. It's all about the victim. I believe this post-interview was all about the realization that this borderline who had controlled so many things and so many people in her life finally could not control the outcome of the rest of her life. Death or life. Two horrible options existed. And the only thing I can relate it to, Drew, is when I go into a restaurant and they say your dessert is free and I get all excited. And then they say it's either Jell-O or rice pudding. That sucks.
I like rice pudding.
Well, Jenny, usually I get flan or Jell-O. But Lonnie, you want to ring in on this? flan.
You know, I think the main thing that we should all get from this interview is if anybody has any doubt that Jodi does not premeditate every single thing in her life. Look, this interview didn't just happen. She planned this interview weeks in advance. She had it lined up with this reporter. She had it lined up with the jail. You can't just walk in and sit down and say, I want to have an interview. She had all of this set up, ready to go as soon as that verdict happens. She is always planning for everything that happens in her life.
And her mom didn't beat her enough. Interesting. Here's another clip before we go on. Another clip of that same interview. Take a look.
Does Kirk like you?
I think 9 days out of 10. I mean,
9 days out of 10.
One day out of 9. 1 day out of 10. Yeah, I think so.
Why don't you get along?
Well, we got along very well for a long time, and then we just have had clashes. Ultimately, he's the boss.
Are you happy with your defense?
I'm grateful for my defense.
That's not happy, though.
Not 100%.
Mark, she must have been a handful for Kurt Nurmi.
Oh, I feel for him. I have clients. I've had clients like this. Here's what I know about Kurt. Here's what I know for sure, okay? I haven't spoken to him, but I know, number one, he knows that she's guilty as heck and yet was forced to stay on this case having to deal with her. She was a difficult client, a Miss Know-It-All. Those are the worst kinds, completely not appreciative, and now nothing but a, well, I wasn't satisfied. I know the type, too bad.
Robbie, I'm going to go out to you. Let's go dial it back to what I was saying at the beginning of the segment about her having spent 4 days in a psychiatric hospital. People don't just stay 4 days in a psych hospital unless there's something really going on or that facility needs to be shut down. I'm just saying. I want Robbie's opinion on this.
Well, I could certainly see, listen, it's very hard to keep anybody in a psychiatric hospital. If anything, they're trying to get you out really quickly. Having said that, Jodi has a history of suicidality. She's a person who has crossed over the line. I'm sure the hospital wanted to make very, very sure that Jodi was not a danger to herself. And she was acting out. This is a woman who is dangerous. So I think they made the right decision here. Is she manipulative? Yes.
Yeah.
But that does not mean that you're not a danger to yourself.
That's right. Mark, maybe this is the way to look at this. This is somebody who we know is homicidal, who is now suicidal. It doesn't get more dangerous than that from a mental health standpoint. Do you get that?
I agree. I agree that that's one part of it, yes. And I also believe that she said those things that needed to be said, not out of a mental illness, but out of somebody who's calculated, cold, and manipulative to get to where she needed to be. And she got into there, and they kept her there because of the things that she said.
But Mark, the keeping there, and Jenny, I'm going to let you ring in here. We know that she has this psychopathic part that is goal-directed, that's lying, that's calculating. None of us disagree with that. I don't like to second-guess my professional colleagues. They know that, too. Jenny, go.
Didn't Dr. Cheryl LaRute say this the other day to you two boys? Didn't you listen? It's her duality. It's the two things, the sociopath, the sociopath part of her.
No.
She's catering to both of you.
No, she said the splitting. Splitting is something borderlines do. You're either all good or all bad. It's either mommy or daddy. It's like go this one or that one.
She's pushing both of your buttons.
Absolutely.
She's pushing both of your buttons, Dr.
Absolutely.
Drew. And causing you to
Mark,
fight.
hang on a second. Let's talk about this because I love Mark Eiglarsh, and he and I are fighting. Imagine what she does at the jail and to Kurt Nurmi and to her defense team.
I have to stand up for Mark here.
Yeah, and I love you too, Drew. But there's no DNA test. There's no DNA test that they take at the jail. Well, and if there's a checklist, if they say certain things, you're going in. That's it.
Right.
It's that simple.
That's right. Lonnie, go finish this up.
The reality is,
Lonnie's got my back. Lonnie's got my back. Go, Lonnie.
Exactly. We know what goes on in the trenches.
Yes.
This was a precautionary move by the warden.
4 days.
It takes some time to get the psychiatrist in there. It takes time to get them in there to do the evaluation. This is over the weekend. Finally, everybody gets back on Monday.
Maybe.
Everything's clear. Okay, you're going back to the regular jail. And that's just the way things happen.
Okay, maybe. Mark?
She kept saying those things.
Yeah.
She kept saying those things that got her in there to begin with. So maybe after 2 or 3 days. But all right, are you done? Are you done? Yeah.
The crazy thing is none of us disagree with one another. It's just her craziness that has us all spinning. And Jenny, that's what you're talking about, and I completely agree with you. Next up, thank you, panel, a well-known psychiatrist. He's going to come in here and say there's nothing wrong with Jodi, and he will make that case in the Behavior Bureau. And later, We have new video of Travis's memorial that you will not see anywhere else. It's very touching footage with his family. And again, we continue to think of them, and our positive thoughts stay with them. But that'll be up after the break.
Had I told them the reason no jury would convict me at that time, I would have been thrown into a padded cell and stripped down, and that would have been my life for a while until I stabilized. I believe death is the ultimate freedom, so I'd rather just have my freedom as soon as I can get it.
I had nothing to do with his death at all. At all. The reason I hesitate is because maybe this is something that's wrong with me psychologically.
I diagnosed her on axis 2 as borderline personality disorder.
She is 2 scoops of crazy with crazy on top.
She's 2 scoops of crazy on steroids.
What if she's punching herself in the face and hitting her head on the wall, which is what I suspect is happening in there? And it's time for the Behavior Bureau. My co-host is Jenny Hutt. Jenny, I want to make sure I got this concept of splitting across to you real quick, because you thought splitting was her psychopathic self and her borderline self. Splitting is something borderlines do, and we would see it in the hospital all the time. For instance, if I would come to the hospital and interact with a borderline, the first thing a borderline would say is, "You're the most wonderful, best doctor in the world. Dr. Smith, he's awful. He's terrible. He's a bad person." Now, when she talked to Dr. Smith, she'd say that Dr. Drew, he's an awful guy. He's terrible. Dr. Smith, you're the great. That's splitting. You're either all good or all bad.
2 hands against the middle. Okay.
Yes, splitting.
Okay.
All right, let's introduce our panel. Joining us, Deneen Manette, criminal investigator and author of Ultimate Betrayal. Samantha Shocker, social commentator and host of Pop Trigger on the Young Turks Network. And psychologist Robbie Ludwig stays with me. But first, I want to get into this. A recent article in Psychology Today caught our eye here. And in the article, it states, quote, by the author, "As much as we want to put Jodi in a nice psychiatric diagnostic box with a bow on top, it doesn't work. Arias was a spoiled, selfish brat, unable to handle Travis Alexander's rejection." That author, Dr. Dale Archer, joins us now. So Dale, interesting. I can't wait to hear your point of view. I want you to lay it out for us, why you don't think she had a psychiatric problem. But more importantly, this has been my thing with Mark Eiglarsh. I don't like it when attorneys take aim at our colleagues. And the attorneys were saying the psychiatric unit doesn't know what they're doing. They're falling victim to this manipulative perpetrator. And they kept her for 4 days. It's hard to keep a patient on a psychiatric unit for 4 days unless there's really a serious psychiatric problem. If there isn't, that unit, it seems to me, needs to be looked at from the state licensing board. What are your thoughts?
Well, no, I disagree. In the real world, if a patient comes to me and says, I'm going to harm myself and they don't want to go in the hospital, I can slap a commitment on them and put them in for 3 days right off the bat. If a colleague agrees with me, they're in for 2 weeks. So we want to take our time and make sure they're not really going to harm themselves. But in prison, it's even easier. When I was a prison psychiatrist, we would face this very, very often. And there you've got really a lot more time to be able to take your time and make sure. The last thing you want to do is take a chance. You throw them on the psych ward, you take your time, you do the evaluation. So this doesn't surprise me at all. And Drew, I got to tell you that we're talking about 2 different things here when we talk about her being thrown onto the psych ward. That was for an adjustment disorder after the stress, the acute stress of being slapped with a murder 1 conviction.
Fair enough.
That tells us nothing about her behavior before.
All right.
Nothing whatsoever.
So let's.
Okay, wait.
Jenny, go ahead, Jenny.
What are you guys talking about? We get that
Jenny,
you're
here's
on
the deal.
different sides. Yeah,
Here's the deal. Dr. Archer is saying that maybe the stress of being potentially facing your death was enough to make you suicidal and depressed, or at least warrant an evaluation. But that is separate from her chronic behavioral personality functions, all the stuff that we've been talking about. Now, Dr. Archer, how do we explain what the psychologist found on the psych testing? Was that just a hired gun interpreting data the way she wanted to?
Well, the problem I have with the psych testing and the problem I have with this whole evaluation is it's basically looking at Jodi as a snapshot after she met Travis Alexander. And if it's a diagnosis such as borderline or antisocial or narcissistic personality disorder, this is a lifetime condition. We start seeing this when they're kids, and then it manifests fully when they're teenagers. Not all of a sudden they meet somebody and boom, you slap a diagnosis on them. We do not have the evidence in Jodi at all that she met this criteria throughout her life. And yeah, she was mean to her mom, and yeah, she lied a little bit, and yeah, she had some tumultuous relationships. This doesn't give a psychiatric diagnosis. It's not even close.
Yeah, but could
Jenny, go ahead.
couldn't it happen later in life? Couldn't it happen that around the time?
Personality disorder, no. He's right about that. Personality disorders are lifelong patterns of behavior and emotional processing. Let's bring in the panel a bit here. Robbie, what do you say to what Dr. Archer is saying?
Well, I mean, I have to say I disagree. I mean, maybe Jodi wasn't diagnosed pre this situation, but here's a girl who was very, very intelligent, who did not graduate high school. That indicates that there was a problem there emotionally, because I don't think the problem was intellectual. She had a history of having difficulty with her family. Some families would say, you're a problem. You need to run, don't walk to the nearest shrink and get evaluated. But maybe her family didn't operate that way. So I think to simply say that we didn't know about a diagnosis until, you know, this
Dr. Archer wants to respond. Go ahead.
To be naive.
Go ahead.
You're not going to sit there and tell me because she didn't graduate from high school and she had a tumultuous teenage years that she meets the criteria for a psychiatric diagnosis? That's not even in the same universe. Come on.
Got it. Deneen, go. Deneen, what do you got?
I completely agree with him. I think that this is just more drama from her. I think that this is so convenient. I think that she's so calculated. I have always felt that way. Just like when people get in trouble, you know, celebrities, and all of a sudden they come up with some condition they have so that they can get rehab, so that they can continue with their advertisements and their jobs or whatever. But I just think she's just full of it. I think that she just knows what to do and what triggers and what buttons to push in order to give herself this allure of psychosis or whatever. But I just think she's just gaming everybody, or she's attempted to game everybody.
Samantha, go ahead. But Samantha, Deneen is pushing my button. The whole reason I did celebrity rehab is I was treating celebrities who were sick that people like Deneen were saying, oh, they're just on a vacation. They're doing it for publicity. And these people were sick and dying, and we decided we needed to show how sick they are. Believe me, we don't admit people to a drug dependency unit unless they meet criteria. What do you say, Samantha?
Of course, I agree with you, and I think that Jodi Arias is a rarity. I think that Jodi is evil, 100% evil. We've seen zero remorse from Jodi Arias since 2008, and I was astonished to see her reaction when she was convicted with murder one. I didn't see her go run and cry with her family. I didn't see her go consult with her counsel. No, she did an interview and used that opportunity to continue to trash Travis Alexander, who's 6 feet under, from her hands, and I can't even stomach to look at her anymore. In fact, I wish I would have the opportunity to wipe that smug look right off her face.
Well, I think most of the panel agrees with that, but Dale, I'm going to finish up with you. Hold on, Dale. If we were to speculate there was a personality disorder here, and again, there's all that data that DeMarte put together that added up to borderline, do you have a suspicion that there's something there? If you were pushed, face to the mirror, if there was something there, would you still think borderline, or would you go more down the sociopathic spectrum?
No, she definitely doesn't meet the criteria for sociopathic because, I mean, those are the people that fill up the jails and go in and out of jail over and over and over. She's not even close to that. I don't think she's borderline either. I mean, if you're going to push me and say you got to give her something, then I would be looking at narcissism. But I don't think she meets the criteria for full-fledged narcissistic personality disorder, but she's narcissistic.
How about narcissistic or borderline traits? Right? We're saying that, right?
She definitely has narcissistic traits without a doubt. And you know, if you look at her history, just since she met Travis, she would meet the criteria for borderline. It's just the lifetime history is not there.
Oh, man. Now I need another segment to mine that, because that's really interesting. But we don't have it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dale. Our Behavior Bureau will be back later to talk about the Ohio kidnappings. And Deneen, you can clarify what you said then. It's all good. Next up, exclusive video you will not see anywhere else inside Travis Alexander's memorial service. Jodi lurking about. We'll get into that. And later, was Travis actually working on a book before he died? And what was he writing about? Back in a moment. Back with my co-host, Jenny Hutt. Jenny, there we are. Still with us, Mark Eiglarsh and Lonnie Coombs. And a reminder that days after Travis was murdered, 1,000 people or so, including Jodi Arias, crowded into a Mormon church in Mesa, Arizona. Well, hold on. Tonight, we have an exclusive look inside that service that you just will not see anywhere else. We've got some great footage. You'll get to listen, coming up here, to how Travis Alexander's sister Hillary memorialized him. Take a look at this.
I have big shoes to fill. My brother was a fabulous speaker, and I'm not. He also loved to travel. Right now, he was reading a book called 1,000 Places to See Before You Die, and he was working on those 1,000. And I know he had a set goal this year, I believe, to see 50 of those places. Travis was also an awesome writer. He loved to write. He had a passion for it. And he was really good. Like, we found tons of things in his house. There's just like, you know, just a sketch, but it was like really, really good. Most of all, he loved making people laugh. He just loved to be with his family and his friends and just bring joy to everybody's life. He truly loved life. Travis was the type of person that he wanted to be close to everyone, and he would find those similarities in anybody that he came in contact with to, you know, feel really close to them. And that's just how he was. In our family alone, all of us felt close to him. And personally, for me, I would say I was only close to a few of my siblings, and he truly was close to all of us. What I'll miss the most about my brother is his smile. I loved his big smile, and it was so cheesy. I just loved it.
Oh, Jenny, I saw you react to this. It's just so heartbreaking, this poor family.
It's her brother. And the fact that Jodi was at that memorial, I can't. Dr. Drew, how are there people that walk the earth like that? Like, who behaves like that? She killed him, she showed, I don't get it.
And I tried to understand what she would hear, how she could not, I don't know. Okay, let's talk to our guests, because they were at the memorial. Joining us, Tyler Farnsworth and Alicia Shaybell, both were very good friends of Travis, and Alicia's on the phone. You were both at the service. I'm going to start with Alicia. I'm going to pronounce your name right. Is it Alicia or Alicia?
It's Alicia.
Alicia, thank you, Alicia, for joining us. And you met Jodi for the first time at the service. What did you observe?
Oh my goodness, Dr. Drew, she came right up to me, and you know, as you said, thousands of people were there, and she came right up to me, beelined it right up to me. In fact, when I walked in, as you can imagine, I'm very somber. This is, you know, one of my best friends. I'm there to, you know, mourn his loss, and she's wanting to talk about working with me in the future with photography, and I just couldn't believe it.
Wow. And I also heard, I guess, Tyler, I'll go to you. Witnesses said that she was smiling and she had a peculiar grin on her face. What did you notice, Tyler?
She was. It was odd. She came in, you know, and like was just said, was shaking people's hands, congratulating them, or not congratulating, but sympathizing with them like a widow, like I guess a black widow. You know, she had come in there and had that odd grin on her face and would just stare at the speakers as they were telling all these loving stories about his life.
Tyler,
really odd.
While like that moving testimony that we just heard from Hillary, she was smiling during that?
She would just sit up there and stare at him with those creepy eyes that we know. She would just sit there and stare at him and have a little grin on her face. It was so odd for us to see her there.
Did anybody start to think, because of her behavior, make her, did she seem even more suspicious because of that, or did you think that?
Yeah, I mean, we thought it was odd that she even showed up. You know, a lot of us had suspicions of her from the very beginning. And so to have her show up there was kind of a slap in the face to all of us. And we really didn't understand why she would even come down to this. And now knowing what we know now is even that more infuriating.
Alicia, did you have a similar reaction?
Well, yes, actually, something told me right before she actually approached me that she had done it. And you know, I will never ever forget that feeling. It's the most darkest feeling you'll ever feel. And so, with that said, having that feeling, I continued to watch her like a hawk, kind of, you know, the rest of the night. And she had a lot of odd behaviors. You know, she made a book of all of the pictures and had all of his friends and family sign it. I have yet to know where that book surfaced, if the family does in fact have it, but she specifically read over my shoulder, "Oh, I love what you wrote there." I mentioned something about the fact of, "This isn't goodbye, Travis. It's see you later. I love you." And she's like, "Oh, I love what you wrote there. That's so sweet." And just her, you know, her creepy grin. And I looked back at her, and I just couldn't believe it. Are you for real right now? Like, this is my moment to mourn his loss. And she's wanting to just, you know, constantly get into everyone's conversations. And privately, there was about a handful of us left at that table. You know, we're all sobbing. People are talking about who could do this. to Travis, you know, and she's like, and she's going along with it, like, yeah, who could do that?
She's in that conversation, Alicia. She's in the conversation as what kind of monster could have done something so vicious and slaughtered him like this.
Yes,
fantastic.
Going along with it completely, trying to create tears of sorrow and just trying to, you know, it just, I just can't believe it looking back. I don't know
nauseating.
what, you know.
Nauseating. Let me give you a little more look inside the memorial for Travis Alexander. Here is Deanna Reed, our friend who has been on this program before. She was a former girlfriend, and then ended up being a very, very close friend of Travis's. Take a look.
Since I first met Travis, I always saw something special in him. At a time even when not very many people might have, when they might have just seen him as a young punk kid living in a house with a bunch of other guys in Riverside, California, driving around in his beat-up Honda Civic, telling everyone that he was going to be rich and he was going to change the world. Recently, I was on the phone with him. He had given me a call when he started writing his book. And he wanted to read to me some of what he had written. And when he was done reading what he had written for his book, he anxiously asked me, "So what do you think?" And I told him how well written it was, how amazing it was, and I thought, I can't believe, like, I've heard this story that he was telling me that he put in his book a couple of times already, but I had never heard it so eloquently put. And then we just started reminiscing about old times and laughing, and then there was a pause in the conversation, and I said, "I love you, Travi, and I'm so proud of you." And he said, "I love you too, more than you know." Travis changed my life. He made me a better person.
These are all people we've come to know through this trial, and it hurts a lot to hear them in such pain. You just imagine. All right, the panel and guests stay with me. We'll have more of the memorial service video. You will only see it here. I'm back with my co-host, Jenny Hutt, and my guest, Alicia Schabel and Tyler Farnsworth, both good friends of Travis Alexander. Our panel is still standing by, Mark Eiglarsh and Lonnie Coombs. We're looking at more exclusive video inside the memorial service for Travis Alexander. Here is one more clip of Travis's sister. Take a look.
He worked very hard at his job, and it was very successful. He had a little black dog also, named Napoleon, a pug. We also, AKA Naps or Napster. Travis enjoyed biking. He had this really decked out outfit that he'd wear. Really funny. I don't know about cute, really funny. But he loved it, and he loved to strut his stuff in it. Travis also got me into genealogy. And every time we would talk about genealogy, we would sing the song, "Genealogy, I'm doing it." And we just loved it, you know. He also loved to travel. Right now, he was reading a book called 1,000 Places to See Before You Die. And he was working on those 1,000. And I know he had a set goal this year, I believe, to see 50 of those places.
Alicia, what is it like to hear that all now after the verdict?
It's gut-wrenching, and I'm glad I'm not on camera right now, Dr. Drew, because I'm tearing up, and it would not be pretty.
It's sad. It's terribly sad.
It is very sad.
Yeah. Tyler, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the same thing. It's sad because he wasn't able to accomplish all those things. Jodi took him from us. She kept him from accomplishing all those great things that he wanted to accomplish in his life.
And the family, they've lost something so vital. Mark, is all this going to come to bear in the final phases of this trial?
You know, the Supreme Court has found that the death penalty is different. You should only give it in limited circumstances. And I think that when they hear from the victim's family, especially if they tell the jurors that this is what they want, that Travis also would want her to pay with the ultimate sanction, it's going to be very difficult for them to turn their backs on the family and what they want after they've lost so much.
Lonnie, you agree?
Yeah, I do. And that's a very effective part of the penalty phase, is if they are able to say, the family members and speaking for the victim, Travis, saying, this is what we believe he would want. The jury really listens to that.
Well, Tyler and Alicia, thank you so much for joining us. And it really, you know, we've all become very connected to the family and to the suffering. And I'm hoping this kind of wraps up and they can get on with their life a little bit. It's just got to be excruciating. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, Alicia, real quick.
Can I add one thing?
Please.
Travis was an amazing person, and his mess of a childhood became his message, and he overcame that. He was tapping into his greatness, and he was only just getting started. That's why it was such a tragedy. And I would hope that out of this trial and this tragedy that we can all remember and believe in our own greatness and become better because we knew Travis.
There you go. Next up, we have an interview with the relatives.
I would echo that.
Ditto.